So how do you stay optimistic about your photography when you're not super satisfied with your kit and you're on a pretty tight budget? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video today. Now, I personally have no room to complain. I shoot with a Fuji X-H2 for photography, and then I'm recording this video with a Fuji X-H2S. Both are perfectly capable and professional cameras, definitely highly recommended. But you see, I came from a Fuji GFX, and before then a Sony A7R. So I feel like I've downgraded quite a bit, but it was a necessary sacrifice, as you probably heard so many times now. When I lost my job in January and I couldn't find another one, I've actually been unable to find one since then. We've basically had to tighten our belts, get rid of anything we didn't need, and that meant those cameras, and pare down to the essentials. Now, I still make these YouTube videos because I hope one day to actually make this into a profession, but that's not here yet. So until then, I'll just keep plugging away at it and working hard to bring you the best and most valuable content I am capable of on a budget. If you're new to the channel, my name is Jude. I'm a photographer. I make these videos on YouTube to help inspire, help us get into discussions about photography, and really so that we all can grow and learn together. Today's topic is one that it's a little bit of a sensitive one for me because it's something I've specifically been struggling with pretty much for the past, 2023. And that is staying satisfied with your kit and still making the effort to create good photographs, even when you're not super happy with the gear you have. So I've been working this scene for a while. It's just not quite right. Not sure if that's from the haze, the sunlight, where it's specifically hitting right now. It's not terrible. Also, I only have something equivalent to about a 45 millimeter and then either like a 100 to 400. So yeah, just not the easiest to really get a good, framing of this specific subject. It's either too tight or too wide. I'll show you what I mean. So this is a really cool scene with the bend in the road right here. This light is hitting this side of the hill and it's all shrouded in shadow. There's a little creek running down here. I like these foreground boulders, but it's just framing things right. It's just not really working for me, but I'm making do with what I have. And that's what this is all about. So last Friday was Black Friday. And to those of you who don't know what that is, maybe you're from another country, maybe you've never experienced it, it's about as an American holiday as you can get. Basically, during Thanksgiving, as we're all sitting around the dinner table discussing what we're thankful for, there are incredibly tempting sales going on all around the consumer world. So anything from physical products to digital gear, everything gets a big discount and people go nuts over it, sometimes to the extreme. And what that means for us is, while we're being thankful for one thing, we are coveting and craving another. That's a cool little area. I wonder if there's a photo to be had here. There's not a lot of light in this little cove, but that's still pretty with all these trees. So if you're like me, and you tend to be a little bit dissatisfied with the kit that you have, you might have gone on to a site like B&H, Amazon, or wherever you like to purchase your camera gear, and you might have seen some of those incredible discounts on some very nice gear, and just felt this pang of a little bit of disappointment that, like me, you couldn't afford it. And so you had to close out that window, shut your computer, and sulk off to complain to your wife. So how do we stay satisfied with what we have? How do we keep going even though we're feeling like we don't have the greatest kit? I think the first thing we have to do is start asking ourselves some very important questions. And question number one is, why? Why do you think you need that piece of gear? It's something I had to ask myself over and over again while looking at those cameras or those lenses. Ask myself, why did I think my kit wasn't enough? So this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, where you're feeling dissatisfied with the kit that you have. Right now I'm trying to frame up this shot. I've got this, this babbling brook, lots of cool ice, and all I have with me, because all I own, is a 70 to 300 for the Fuji system. That's like a 100 to 400 on 35 millimeter equivalent, and a 30 millimeter, which is about a 45 millimeter, I think, Sigma lens. The one is too wide, the one is too narrow, and that's where I'm struggling. I want to see more of the frame, but I don't want to see that much of the frame. There's this half down birch, a really cool ice pattern, and I'm just not able to frame it up right. So personally, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying that you're feeling dissatisfied. It's that you feel limited by your gear. You feel like you're not getting the most out of your kit. This is a fantastic camera, but I can't make good with that, or I can't make full use of that because the camera gear that I have to go along with it is like entry-level used gear that was the cheapest I could get, and that's just not quite matching what I need. And it's more about like your mindset behind it, asking yourself that question of why you think you need it. Do you think you're unable to take good photographs? Do you think maybe that it's because you're trying to achieve something that you're just like unable to? And so instead of like approaching it with this preconceived notion that like I should be able to take a picture of this, you change your mindset to match the gear that you have. Something to think about for sure. Asking yourself that question of why. So I might now try to actually frame this up differently, because the thing that first attracted me to this scene was the fact that there's this like ice shelf. So maybe instead of trying to fit all of these other elements that might distract, I just need to focus in on that ice shelf. This is where asking yourself why can help lead you to a more positive outlook on things, instead of focusing on the negative that's, I can't afford it, therefore I can't take the shot I want, therefore I'm sad. You start asking yourself that question of why, and instead of focusing so much on like the lack of something, you can start asking yourself like, well, what can I actually photograph with the kit that I have? What makes this lens more unique, more powerful, more capable? And that might actually lead you to a better photograph than you would have seen otherwise. So taking that positive outlook could actually really help. So I'm framed up with this specific composition. It's not exactly like what I was envisioning, but it's a start. What's happening here is I've got this ice shelf and there's a branch running through it. And that branch kind of acts like a leading line into that, mirroring the shape of the ice shelf, which is kind of cool. And then I'm going to be blurring out the water, and hopefully with a 1/4 second shutter, f/16, this will wind up being a halfway decent photo to start things off in this specific spot. And I'm going to work this composition, I'm going to work this photo with the gear that I have until I find something that I'm really happy with. 2-second timer. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's not terrible. I don't like the big, like the bunch of rocks that are right next to it. All of them have like leaves covering them, and that's really kind of distracting. So if I tighten things up a bit, there's these like red branches poking out. I'm pulling further out now. No, there's too much. There's leaf litter down at the base that's really pulling the eye there. So So you can see how one of the major benefits to limiting your kit and forcing yourself to think a little bit more about your photo, it's forcing me to practice composition. You know, instead of just having every available focal length to myself. This is really forcing me to think a little bit deeper about composition. It's forcing me to think more about like where the elements of my photo or where the elements of my scene are in my framing. And that's really good practice. So I may not be creating like a professional portfolio piece, but through what I am doing, I'm actually working really hard at composing elements of the scene, which is fantastic practice. And when I can afford that nicer kit, or when I can afford those more focal lengths, I'll have practiced this skill here, right now, instead of just waiting to get something nicer. Okay, so I'm still here working this scene because I found this other little subject that's like captivating me. And it's this rock that's in the water with a little like ice crystal skirt around it and a single leaf that has fallen and landed right on the edge of it. Right now I'm at f8 1/10 of a second, and what it's doing is it's still giving me a nice depth of field, but it's also making sure that it's not so bright and blown out that I have to, you know, sharpen things up. Yeah, now that I've got like a nice amount of the ice in focus, I kind of want to get as much along the edge of the rock in focus. The big thing that is bothering me about this photo is how big the rock feels. It's taking up a lot of the frame, and I don't particularly like that. I'd much rather it be a little bit smaller, but you know, we are working with what we have, and that is the whole point. All right, I've been here way too long taking these pictures. Not that I mind, because a lot of them, like I said, I wouldn't have taken had I not been here with inadequate gear, trying to find something to photograph. If you have all the gear in the world, you might wind up just photographing the obvious subject. When you're lacking in that, forces you to kind of think a little bit more outside the box, and it winds up being a lot more fun because of it. Found this one little subject, this little waterfall, and perfect ice structure. Just had to take pictures of it. And then I found some really cool like ice formations around a rock that look like, I don't know, like beads. It just looks so cool. And the bubbles forming around it. I must have taken like 50 photos to try to get the bubbles to look the way I wanted them to. But that's the whole process. Oh, that sunlight feels so nice. I was there for probably an hour taking pictures of that creek. My fingers are numb, my batteries are dying, but it's been a wonderful time, and that's the whole point. Are you satisfied with your kit? Maybe not. Can you still take photos? Probably. What is this whole video trying to tell you? It's not that gear doesn't matter, because we've established that it does. It's that it's all about your perspective. If you have the perspective of the negative side of, I don't have good gear, therefore I can't take good photos, then you won't take good photos. And you'll never have good enough gear. But if you have the perspective of, I may not have great gear, I may not be able to take the best photos, but I'm going to do the best that I can with what I have, you might surprise yourself how much you can grow, how much you can learn, and how much that photo gear will suddenly feel more professional. And this can apply to other things too. Maybe you feel like you can't travel to cool places to take pictures of cool things. So you feel like your photos will never really get any better because you're stuck, just in your local area. Or maybe you feel like you don't have any time because you've got a job, family, obligations that prevent you from being able to come out and do this type of stuff very often. Let me start off by saying those things are all valid. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way from time to time. But if you let those things prevent you from seeing the bigger picture, of seeing the possibilities, of seeing like the positive spin on things, your photography is going to suffer, and then you're gonna suffer. Don't let it cripple you. Don't let it prevent you from finding joy in what you have, what you're doing, and in what you love. Because then you're gonna start hating it. You're gonna start being disappointed with it no matter what you have, no matter what you have access to. I mean, look at my area. It's gorgeous. But so often, because it's not the Swiss Alps or it's not Machu Picchu, I feel like I have nothing good to photograph. I'm pretty dumb sometimes. I hope this video has been a help to you. I hope it's given you a little bit of hope. I hope it's given you some inspiration to think a little bit differently about you, your art, what you have, so that as the holiday season is progressing, especially, you don't let it discourage you. You don't let it stop you from enjoying the time that you have. And really the thing that's most important is it's not the gear, it's not the location, but it's your own personal growth through it, your own personal enjoyment out of it. That's really gonna come through in the photographs. And that's really the whole point. So if you enjoyed this video, found this topic helpful, go ahead and leave a comment down below, give me a little thumbs up. And if you wanna see more of my stuff, click that subscribe button, turn notifications on. I try to put out a video every single week, very much like this, where we go out, we take some pictures, we talk about something, art, photography, philosophy, mindset related. And I'm gonna stop here, take this picture. Ultimately, I just really appreciate your support and that you took the time to join me on this little outing / discussion. Take care, and I'll see you next time.